Folks, we're going to talk about my thoughts on real estate prices in 2023. I actually think many of you are going to be surprised because I will admit that we may have a year-on-year price decline. More on that later. We're going to talk about buy box and the subtleties of it. And we're going to talk about, is everybody up to be a landlord? The real key to this theme is this is a weekly series we do with the one and only Millennial Mike, who scours the comment section of One Rental at a Time and brings in the spiciest, the most interesting, and yes, sometimes the fun questions. So if you have a question you've always wanted to ask, drop it in the comments below. Millennial Mike will scour it, and we will perhaps take your question. Mike, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I look forward to doing this. You know, people either Instagram message me videos they want us to react to or questions they want answered, or they leave them in the comment section and I pull them from there. So yeah, in this one, we do have a bunch of different topics. So let's take a look. I think probably one of the ones that was weighing on my mind the most was the topic of how could you get single family rental rates to decline? So at JT1238 says, if a lot of sellers turn to renting out their property, plus investors rent to build neighborhoods, this will definitely push rent prices down. They're going to many rental properties in my market. And your response was, it could absolutely, but this prompted the question to me of what type of scenario would have to evolve for single family rental rates to start plunging?
Yeah, so we got to be very careful. Falling versus plunging, right? It's subtleties of words. So again, I do think we run the risk of having single family home rents fall. But again, just like we have a buy box, the Lumberjack talks about a rent box. So I would suggest everybody look in their market, their buy box, and look for these things. These are the indications that there may be a wave of supply coming. And anytime supply comes in a wave, it could distort rents and actually take rents down. For example, do you live in a part of town or a city where Airbnb was the hot thing for 2 years and maybe now is frankly illegal? Has the city adopted something that says you can only have one, right? Has something changed at the city or county or district or whatever level that forces short-term rentals, VRBO, Airbnb, and I'm sure others, to then become month-to-month rentals? If that's true, yeah, like I think there was an island in Hawaii that I read about. This is probably 90 days ago, that said a short-term rental is now 90 days. Now, I could be wrong, but let's just pretend that's true. Well, that's going to change a lot of business models. And if you have a rental there, why not just go month to month? And if, I don't know, 10% more supply comes on, that could hurt rents exactly. Second, if you happen to be in a city where private equity, hedge funds, insurance companies, Invitation Homes, any of these other big ballers come in and says, hey, I'm going to buy that community over there of 412 homes, like just happened in Houston, Texas, you're going to have some rental pressure. Because again, they're going to go to nicer stuff. They're going to go to newer stuff. There is going to be a problem. So at the end of the day, then lastly, let's talk about Seattle. I talked about Seattle the other day. And again, this is from memory, so I might be off. In July of this year, it was reported that roughly 1% of active listings went from for sale to rent. By November, so what's that, 5 months later, 14% of listings went from for sale to for rent. You always got to be careful with percentages because maybe the listing fell and all of that. But nonetheless, if you have a lot of sellers who go, hey, if I can't get my price, I'm just going to rent it out because I have this asset called a 30-year mortgage at 2.8%, it can happen. I do think there will be some cities, some buy boxes that do get dominated with new single families. So you could see rents fall. I do not think that will be a country phenomenon. I actually talked about rental rates this morning on the Daily Financial News, and other than Nevada, which came in at negative 3.2%, all the others were around 1%. The top 5 states with rents declining, and one of them was Virginia at negative 0.1. So those are what I think about. So it absolutely could. We could talk about the country single family going up, but hey, if you happen to have a buy box or a rent box that just had Invitation Homes come in and buy 400 homes, you're going to feel that. So know your area.
Yeah. So I like that point that you make. So I recently did a video talking about the falling rents because it seems to me that they're falling in apartment buildings, and there's evidence that they're coming down in apartment buildings. And I'm hearing
No
stories
question.
about
No question.
people, about apartment buildings. However, when it comes to single family rentals, I've talked to you, I've talked to Lumberjack, I've talked to Dion, myself, friends I have in the Midwest. Dana, CEO of Hemlane, said 18,500 rental properties that they manage, and not a single one had rented for less than it had before. She made that comment on November 5th of this year. So I don't know if that's changed. But as far as I can tell, single family rental rates are still holding pretty strong. And so my question to you, follow-up question to you is, in any of your nearly 200, have you re-rented at a lower rate?
No, I do not recall in my 22 years. I've had flat rents, and I've done flat rents on purpose because turnover is what kills a landlord. But I don't recall lowering rent ever. The last thing I will say is actually something Grant Cardone is really pushing here recently, Renter Nation. And part of the reason I think single family homes are going to be firmer than most people expect is affordability. Right, affordability is near a record low, if not a record low. We'll see where it comes out at the end of 2022. But there's a lot of people that would rather live in a home that just can't afford to buy today. Maybe they're scared to buy. So there's actually more demand for single family rentals today than there was a year ago, and it's all because of interest rates. So I think it'll be firmer than most people expect.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about price declines for the country. So we have some markets that are declining and some that aren't. So at Rocco D. Francesco, 1778 says, "Good morning, Michael. If you were to take a guess, how long would you think Las Vegas and Phoenix's decline will last?"
Well, again, Las Vegas and Phoenix are certainly not the country. Both of those are very iBuyer centric, and one would argue the most iBuyer centric. I talk to Brian Lebo once a month, and yes, I will get him on probably in the next week or so. We're already texting each other. I would suspect Vegas and Phoenix will be soft through, this is my wild ass guess, is through because I don't buy in either location, but probably through the summer. I believe the iBuyers will be washed out by then. We will then find the baseline, and again, unless rates shoot up, which I'm not expecting. I believe we put a floor across the country by April, May, June. It'll vary by state. I think Phoenix and Vegas will be two cities that skew to the end of that, just given how distorted iBuyers were.
Right. Yeah, they definitely have done some havoc in the markets that they operate in, big time. Okay, so 2022 is over, and you said median home prices nationwide wouldn't drop during 2022. Well, it's officially
And
January.
I was right. I was right.
So you were right, and they can never change it now.
That's right.
But for those people who say, what about 2023?
Yeah.
Ibanez Fagundes 1001. I'm sorry if I ruined that name, my friend. Says, Zuber, after your latest interviews in which you have been exposing the latest news on declining home prices, do you still hold the opinion that median home prices won't go down? Or do you think that we will see adjustments in the range of 20 to 30% from peak to trough, depending on the market in 2023?
So again, everybody is splitting hairs, right? So let's talk about the country first, and let's talk about market second. I actually did a show, a daily financial news, I think right at the end of the year, where I gave 12 real estate predictions. I need to do a separate video with just those so people can hold me accountable. So I'll do that in the next day or so. But one thing I did release is I expect national median home price to show a negative number for 4 months next year. My current guess is April, May, June, July. So that's very different. I have not called for national median home price to be negative before. I'm calling for 4 months next year. More importantly, at least for my opinion, is when I look at December to December. I believe December 23 median home price will be above December 22 home price. If you really look at the Case-Shiller or any of these others, there was this little unnatural run-up. And you heard from Beth, and you heard from Omar, and you heard from Adrian talk about the bananas purchases right at the end as rates were in the high 2s or low 3s. We got to pay that price. There was some stupidity in that. That was a blow off top. So I do think we get 4 negative numbers in the middle of the year. But I do not believe year on year, meaning December to December, will be negative. It will be positive. Now to the second part of that question. Could a city like Phoenix or Vegas or Austin or Sacramento go negative 35% peak to trough? I don't think so. That's too much. The only way they go negative 35% is if migration stops to all those cities and actually reverses. Like, hey, sorry, you got to come back. You got to move back to California. Your employer wants you. That would be a problem. Unemployment goes to 10%. I know there's a channel out there talking about negative 35%. I believe that channel has been negative for 3 years and wrong for 3 years. I don't see any city going. I mean, other than maybe Boise. I mean, Boise could go down 35% when you look at the data. 35% is a lot. It could go down 25%, just given the geography and how small it is. But no, I don't see any city peak to trough. I think people are going to be shocked that by May we put in a foundation or floor, because what we have to do is we have to blow out these iBuyers. We have to blow out Airbnbs that were done badly. And yes, it was a problem. Yes, there was some gambling, but the numbers are inconsequential when you look at the big picture. So no, I don't believe there will be a city that shows negative 35%. I think people that talk about that want clicks and live in their mom's basement and are renters, not owners. So that's what I think.
Yeah, and I think that what's most telling is, what Beth talked about with Seattle, being one of those cities where it was extremely hot and possibly overinflated. When interest rates spiked up into the 7 and transactions fell through the floor, we saw a little bit of softening year over year. It was down 1%. But as soon as interest rates have come back down, just even into the 6s, it's picking back up again. So it seems like that point where people are willing to get out of the market is like 7%. But if we're in the 6s for interest rates, yeah, it's slowing down transactions, but not enough to drop prices anything substantially. So, and I think that you and I, maybe 6 months, maybe a year from now, we'll be making a lot of videos titled "The Crash That Never Happened."
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a question about buy boxes. So from Tyler Marion 8598, he says, what should I do if an average deal in my buy box is less than a 9% yield? Should I look in a different area?
So this is an individual question. I don't pass judgment on anyone, right? When you have a buy box, you may have personal reasons. I remember a couple I spoke with, man, it might have been a year ago, maybe even a year and a half ago. They chose San Diego, California. They have reasons to be there, and they don't want to go anywhere else. They want to manage themselves. They want to be able to drive to it, blah, 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 blah. So in their case, I think their average deal was like -4. It was an alligator, which if you follow my teachings is a big no-no.
Right.
But they ended up getting a deal, I think, at like 2.5. Now, 2.5 to most of us is horrible. But a 2.5 in San Diego that fits everything else they want is a great deal for them. So they should do that deal. Now, should they do that deal today when mortgage, when you can get 4% in a 10-year? That's a different conversation. But I don't judge, right? If your average buy box is 9% and you have that average buy box for a reason, then go nuts. Just remember, if average is 9, we're only doing 11s and 12s, right? Just because average doesn't give you permission. I never give anybody any permission to do average. We are exceptional at one rental at a time. We work to understand average, so we only do great. Most people only could do a deal a year, a deal every 2 years, so make it great. Work to find average, then do great.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I thought that was kind of a question that was more, obviously they're using specific numbers to them. But really what it comes down to is if you have taken the time to learn the skill of knowing what average is in your market, whatever average is in your market, if you want that market for whatever reason, well, you don't get to do an average deal. 9% might be a great deal in your market. In which case, well, maybe that's the one you need to buy. But
yeah, 9% in Fresno was a great deal for me for, I don't know, 16 of my 22 years. I'd have done that deal 16 out of the last 22 years.
Right. So yeah, it really comes down to doing the work so that you know your specific area. Okay, let's see here. Not everybody can be a landlord, right? So at Jeff M, Jeff, who always has questions for us, and he always asks good questions. This is a little bit of a longer one. He says 43% of adults under 40 want to own a rental. Well, who's going to rent it if everyone is owning a rental? Doesn't this feel toppy to you? When is the when is the invisible hand going to correct the natural balance? Your response was not at all. Most want, but will never do. I want to lose weight, but I eat pizza and ice cream. Nobody wants to work.
Yeah. So again, this is the whole thing about percentages being very misleading. Like, how many of us want 6-pack abs? 98% of us. Yeah, you might actually have them, so that's kind of cheating. But again, it's like, how many people want to do something? We live in a microwave society. I believe most people are soft. I believe most people. I mean, we have it's this is amazing. You and I are recording this the morning of January 2nd. It is currently 7:27 a.m. And I would guess that 50% of people have already broken their New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, probably.
Right. So these whole 47% of this or 40, I don't know. It's 5% of people willing to do the work. So no, it doesn't feel toppy. It just feels like a stupid question. That of course people say, yeah, of course I want a rental. Like, yeah, I want 6-pack abs, but I'm gonna go have a double scoop of vanilla ice cream with caramel on it. Yeah, okay, whatever. So I don't those kind of articles are interesting for me to read, but frustrating when people take them as gospel.
Right. And, when I was looking at that stat, the one that came to my mind is the whole 84% of buyers say right now is a bad time to get into the market. Well, 84% of buyers are wrong and they're dumb. And if that's what they believe, that's good for me, because if you are being greedy when others are fearful, that's when you have the opportunity. So,
yeah, when that stat came out, I don't know when that was. It must have been 90 days ago. I was like, time to get busy. Got 2 deals done in 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah. I love it when everybody's scared. I've done this before. This is my second or third go around. I love it when people are afraid. It's amazing.
Okay, let's see here. Bank layoffs. Now, this is a good one. Some people are getting a little bit stressed out because they're sitting here saying, wait a minute. 2007, 2008, Merrill Lynch, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, Citigroup. I don't know. I was a teenager. I can't come up with any more names. But bank layoffs. Let's see here. So Kanoa Bristol, 1979 says Goldman Sachs to lay off 4,000 employees in January. Is this a marker of a repeat of the 2008 financial crisis?
Absolutely not.
Why is it?
You've been watching my channel. I've been highlighting that a white collar recession is coming. And oh, by the way, so let's just step back. Goldman Sachs' reputation for 20 years is they would whack the bottom 5% every year. It just wasn't reported. So first and foremost, the fact that they're going from 5 to 8% this year, which is the number that's been reported by them, by their CEO, Solomon, is really just a makeup for the last 2 years where they didn't do this. So this may be scary. It will certainly get a lot of headlines. But in the banking industry, like tech, bottom 5% should be fired. It keeps everybody else on their toes. And, oh, by the way, it allows you to have a bonus pool that really rewards the top players. Second, just like tech, financial institutions overhired the last 2 years, specifically in the mortgage area. You know how many mortgages were done at 2.5% refi purchase? They should be firing these people. So again, a white collar recession is in front of us. That means bankers, tech workers to be laid off. It also means that other institutions will pick them up. What we're seeing in the Bay Area, and again, it's early, this may change, is yes, we are getting pink slips in the Bay Area, but people are finding jobs before they have to file unemployment. There are plenty of positions. We had an arms race for talent, and the people with the biggest checkbook paid the most. Now they are releasing people, and the second and third tier are picking people up, which is a better balance. It's actually how great companies are created. No, this is, and again, why did Lehman happen? Bear Stearns, they were essentially companies that were unprofitable that had to close because they had some investments that went south. That's not what's happening. It's completely different than 08 at a financial institution level.
Okay, so here's a question from Amy. She's a member of your course. She has the one rental at a time course, and she also does a little local meetup accountability group on a
Oh,
weekly basis.
I love that she did that. So again, folks, if you are in the one rental at a time community or Facebook group and you want to hold little meetups, because I think we're getting to a size where you can do that, follow what Amy's doing in the Bay Area. It's I saw a Zoom on that. It's pretty cool what she's doing.
Yep. Well, she has a question. So Amy, a little bit of context for her. She does currently have one house hack property in San Jose where she lives. And her question was, at the end of the day, I feel very shiny object syndrome. I was learning Lumberjack's 4-3-2-1 strategy using an FHA loan. But in my real estate meeting, an investor was talking about seller financing deals and how it's a game changer. Should I learn more about seller financing? Should I house hack a fourplex? What about assuming someone's mortgage or buying a house with an ADU? I feel like I'm not focusing enough. Any advice for a frustrated California investor who doesn't want to live in a bad neighborhood just to make it work?
Yeah, so very common, right? Real estate investing offers up hundreds, if not thousands, of ways to move forward. That's where I try to really come in with the buy box. The buy box is the best thing I have found to create focus, because it's not only permission to focus, but it's permission to ignore. And I think a lot of people get this wrong. So Amy, or anyone following this, if your strategy is to do a 4-3-2-1, which I think is the cheat code to wealth, I think will make you a millionaire faster than any other way. I would be focused on that. So what does that mean? That means the thing that you need to be focused on is finding a fourplex. I would not worry about how you acquire it, whether it's a 3.5% down FHA, whether it's seller financing or it's sub 2. I think she's confusing acquisition vehicle with asset. I would, if I was Amy, look at every fourplex in a nice area of the Bay Area. I would figure out what average is, and then I would go figure out how do I acquire it. Don't get those confused, because right now, because then you get all tied up in spaghetti and you don't know where to go. I want to do 4-3-2-1. Check. I'm going to go look at fourplexes. Check. Oh, this one's better than the rest. How can I acquire it? That's probably how I would break it down.
Right. Right. And yeah, my advice too, I remember when we had one of our maybe it was our very first conversation, and I'd closed on my first duplex, and you told me you need to learn about seller financing. You need to do seller financing. The other thing you told me was you need to network more. So doing both of those, check. But yeah, so for Amy, you know what you want to do, the strategy you want to do is with 4-3-2-1. There's lots of different ways that you could acquire that property. Regular loan, seller financing. There's nothing wrong with learning more about how seller financing deals work, learning more about assumable mortgages, and learning more about just conventional lending. But yeah, get your buy box, figure out average, find the right property, and then figure out one of those options that'll work to get that property.
Done. Like it.
Okay, let's end things on a happy note. So from Bear Paw Tactical, who I can only assume must be a police officer by his name, Bear Paw Tactical, you are absolutely making a difference, Mike. I was stuck on the Crash Bro videos. I was trying to figure out when to buy, and then I found your channel and my entire perspective changed. Looking back, I'm beyond grateful for your channel. You helped me figure out how to do the work and get into a house. Thank you.
That's awesome. Again, yeah, I've said it before, and I'll probably say it 1,000 times this year. These are my number one goals, sending these out. These are just from the weekend. These black cards are for your next deal. The golden tickets are for your first deal. I want to know that I'm making a difference. So I love those notes. I take them, I put them on my cork board or whatever you call that. And yeah, I need to feel like I'm making a difference. So yeah, those notes are very wonderful. You have your 2 cards. I think might actually be 4 cards there.
Oh, there's 4.
Yeah. Look at you, big boy. Yeah. So yeah, I thank you for that. I appreciate all the kind words.
Yeah, and it's true. The Crash Bros do a lot towards affecting the psychology of the buyer. And, just like the Crash Bros on YouTube, honestly, the mainstream media does a whole lot of exposing people's negativity bias. And my girlfriend, Marina, when I told her, why can't you buy a house? She said, well, I just can't. There's just no way I can. I don't make enough money. She just had told herself she would never qualify. She doesn't make enough money. There's nothing that could happen. Well, we just closed on her first duplex that she's going to house hack in the Seattle area, one of the most expensive markets that there is. because instead of listening to the mainstream media and instead of listening to Crash Bros, which she didn't watch YouTube Crash Bros, but she was still a victim of that mindset. She just had no idea that she qualified for more than she thought. She'd be able to make the payments work. She could rent the property out. She could get a cash flow positive property. And she was able to move in at 25 years old, making $42,000 a year. She used a VA loan because she served, and she made it happen. So, one of your goals is to help 1 million people. And you've said that the only way you'll ever make that happen is if the people you help others. Well, by helping me for all these years, I was able to reach out and help her. And now you got another one. Anyways, Mike, that's all the questions for today.
Yeah, folks. So again, ask questions. Put, Mike scours this. If you want us to react to videos, you can tag him on Instagram. He is the man. What is your YouTube channel?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about long distance real estate investing or out of state investing, just follow me at Millennial Mike on either YouTube or Instagram.
Thanks, buddy.